with it too. So, like I'm learning so much, and like I say too, meeting people up.
How you doing, everybody? This is the best of the week. We are here with LOE Sounds out of California. Some of like the wildest enclosures you ever seen on pedals. Very creative, very inspiring, and it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm delighted.
Thank you for coming on. So if we understand right, you're hand-making pedals out of, in many cases, recycled enclosures and trying to be, very green in the process. Can you sort of, tell everyone sort of about, your pedals and your company and how this whole thing started?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I am a thrift store whore, dime store diamond, so I've been doing that my whole life. My mom and my grandma are into it. My wife is into it. So through that and, just being a lifelong musician, always being super nerdy into pedals especially, as I stopped being in touring bands and like doing that as my life focus, I needed kind of like some new challenge. So several years ago, I just started doing the whole DIY, learning a little bit about it. And eventually, as I started making them, I kept finding these cool things in the thrift stores that I'm like, this just appeals to me aesthetically so much. So the thing of it is that a lot of people don't realize is it literally takes me, I would say, probably 5-6 times longer to make these pedals in these salvage enclosures than it would to make it in a regular, metal box. There are lots of additional challenges. A lot of times they're plastic, so I have to like super reinforce them with epoxy and metal inside to make it, ground properly. There's a whole lot to it. And I gladly do it because I am passionate about the environment. I worked for this eco company in the Bay, salvaging electronics for them for about a year. And that's when it really kind of hit home, like, wow, there's no exit plan for any of these old electronics. It's going right in the landfill. There are a few companies like them and others who we actually go in and we desolder parts off of old circuit boards from dead stuff. And now, after a few years, I kind of have an eye for what things are really good quality and valuable parts-wise. So all those like intercom boxes that I, build my pedals into, I use all the parts of those circuit boards. There are very few parts in there I don't use. Usually, like the switch is usually broken, so like that can't be used a lot of the time, and you can't get them anymore. So turn into something else. But I definitely go in and desolder all the capacitors and old resistors and stuff, and I try to use the ones I pulled out of that unit that I'm using the enclosure of back into the new circuit.
Oh wow.
So it's just a super nerdy thing that I love to do, and I'm just like thrilled that people are ordering them and into it because I also love analog electronics and old type sounds. So a lot of the things I do are going to be combination of like old fuzz stuff that you can't necessarily buy anymore unless you have someone make it for you with my own tweaks. And then I also love like crazy boxes of like delay is my favorite effect. And so like little, I'm working on more lo-fi kind of effects, blurry kind of things moving forward.
That's cool. So I didn't realize, so you're actually using some of the components from the original electronics back in the pedal.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So how does your design process work, right? So how do you even start doing something like that?
I really couldn't start doing it until about a year ago because I've had to amass a certain amount of stuff because this new circuit I'm putting in is calling for certain things that I just like maybe I don't find in salvage, for example, this is really nerdy, but electrolytic capacitors, I have to use new ones because the old ones are usually all oozy and gross. They don't last beyond a decade or whatever. So things like that. So it's just it's kind of a combination of new and old for me. Because I do use a lot of new enclosures as well. It really, for custom orders especially, it's whatever the customer wants. you know, that's great. I like any challenge, whatever the case may be. But recently I started working with my friend Gary. He has a company called Parts Caster Concierge, and he's been taking his like offcuts. He makes guitar bodies, like really beautiful guitar bodies. And he takes the stuff that he would normally have to throw away or, you know, chip out or whatever, and he's building me cases for guitar pedals that are essentially guitar body wood, and he refinishes them in the same way you would a guitar body. So we sort of like teamed up lately and are doing that, and people seem to be really digging it. And in the future, this year, I'm going to be offering 100% post-consumer recycled, commingled plastic molded enclosures that a friend of mine that I met at the eco place I was working at, he built this machine out of trash that can take any kind of plastic and, you know, melt it down and turn it into new stuff. And so I think that's next level. Yeah. So I'm really excited about that too.
Wow. So that was stuff that I didn't know until just now. So that's awesome to hear. How, like, I guess is your vision moving forward just to go completely recycled, you know, and have that be sort of your thing?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's what I was trying to do with my friend Nate. We were, you know, at work just BSing with each other and realized he was like, oh, we could like team up and do something cool here. And so now we're trying to just figure out a way to like metalize the interior of the plastic so it can be like rounded properly and stuff. Because ideally, we want to make molds of some of the cool old enclosures that are getting scarcer for me, quite honestly, to find. Yeah. And just literally make a mold of that and be able to do recycled plastic and aluminum molds of cool stuff from the 60s, 70s, 80s, you know. Like, I'm a huge aficionado of Radio Shack 80s beige stuff, things like that. Yep. So that's something I'm really stoked about, is being able to make like super beige, cool looking enclosures in the future.
That's awesome. So you mentioned that, you know, delay is your favorite effect of all time, and I noticed it seems like you're making a lot of fuzz circuits. So what can people expect for, you know, circuits coming out from LOE moving forward?
Like I was saying, I'm doing these dub sirens. I love dub. Reggae music's probably if I have to pick a favorite, my favorite. So I've been experimenting with this little like lo-fi digital delay, this kind of like crappy sounding delay, and adding things to it that, you know, do you know what a dub siren is?
No.
On a dub reggae song, every now and then you got this smooth groove going on, dun, 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 like, and all of a sudden somebody goes, ah!
That's what I thought it was.
So that's a dub siren. And it's just basically like an oscillator that you can kind of play. But I just took it one step further and added an input so you can push your guitar through it. And it's a playable synth as well. So I'm kind of trying to make them look like the old school reggae dub sirens, but kind of make them like the delay section's definitely digital, like a modern. It's because analog delay circuits are humongous and time-consuming and expensive. So I would love to do that in the super future. But for the meantime, these dub sirens have 4 different circuits inside. So if I was to do them analog, it'd probably have to be like the size of a laptop and not too pedalboard friendly, you know?
Yeah, right. Some of the fuzz circuits, are you designing those yourself, or are you kind of borrowing from classic circuits, or how are those coming about?
I'm all about the classic circuits, and I'm also just like learning, you know, so new to still learning about that. So I come at this from more of like a builder, sound designer. I've been a sound designer for many, many years and did some film work and things like that. And so that was another thing about building the pedals, was I wanted to take some of the classic circuits that I was like always using when I was recording and doing sound design. And there's always like one thing about it, or couple things about it that I'm like, it doesn't fit my ear just right. So, started getting in there and modifying them. And especially with the fuzz circuits, the older ones, like there's just something about them that adds this oomph and ambience and whatnot. So I definitely, for the fuzz end of things, lean more toward the classic type of things. The super fuzz has always been my favorite as a bass player, especially that's like a monster. And so it was like a no-brainer that I wanted to kind of do a version of that had tweaks that I've tried a million tweaks on that circuit over the years, and the ones that like sound pleasing to my ear, be able to just like hone that in and kind of do your own version of it.
Sure. And those are using recycled components as well, even in the, sort of in the classic circuits, or is that all new stuff?
Yeah, because the way that I'm doing it, I'm finding that it's like really hard for me to find brand new transistors for those that are the right gain that I want them to be.
Sure.
So I literally, for each one of those, I have to match, 6 of them exactly, and I have to pull them from salvage. So I have white tubs in my shop here full of just unsorted stuff that's been pulled out of circuit boards.
Oh, wow.
And I test thousands of them.
Yeah.
And because I find that the ones that are from the era of the original Super Fuzz, I'm like, they tend to me have more of a pleasing sound.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I can't really find a lot of modern ones that are in that range I want them to be. Right. So they are almost exclusively new old stock or salvaged.
That is
nice.
I gotta say that's nuts, right? I mean, I'm reacting to that. That's you don't hear of a lot of people building pedals going through that amount of work. It's people gotta they gotta match things up. You know what I mean, and make sure that everything's in the right range. But it's that's wild to me. So yeah, that's awesome. So. So you do a lot of custom stuff too. So what's the process for if somebody wanted to, a custom pedal, right? How does that process work?
Usually someone will reach out to me on Instagram and just say, hey, I have this idea, and they like the aesthetic too, like the finishing that we might be able to do. They have ideas and we work together. And, a lot of times I find with the custom stuff lately, I'm getting people saying like, this is the circuit I want, but it'll be like, but I want to do baritone guitar. I want to play bass. And so we'll tune it to that for them and get the circuit sorted out. But a lot of times people are just saying, pimp it out. Like just make it really cool. Mm-hmm. However you would do it,
Yeah, that's the best, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is, because I'll tell you what, I go all out on that. Mm-hmm. Like I get in there and I like do a whole new graphic design. I'll hand etch a copper plate and do, that's really fun for me. I like being creative, and I love doing the custom stuff so much, and collaborations and things like that. Yeah, I just like to keep it interesting.
Makes sense. So where does your sort of the aesthetics come from with your pedals? Some of the stuff is recycled. It looks like some of it's new enclosures. So, how do you put those pieces together, especially with a custom sound, to have something that's uniquely yours?
I think the enclosure itself inspires the whole the exterior look of it. Does the whole thing. Like knob selection is going to take me, I'm not even going to lie to you, like as long as building the thing.
Sure.
It's going to sit there for 3 days, and I'm going to try 100 different kinds of knobs on there. And I'm just really picky about that.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's like just as important to me that looks like a piece of art and sounds killer. Yeah.
That's awesome. And Low Pedals is still, if I understand, that's there's 2 people, right? So it's...
Yeah. My wife, Fiona, does a lot of the exterior stuff. she'll hand paint some of, especially the customs. You know, she does a lot of the customs that are completely hand painted and epoxied and all that. And she's sort of also guiding me. You know, we kind of say, oh no, those knobs suck, or, you know, like we go through the aesthetic process together. And she's now just beginning to start helping me with the kind of no fun work, which is like cutting 2,000 2-inch wires.
Oh yeah.
Because I also like to torture myself with lots of extra wiring because I want to look like an old thing inside. I don't use board-mounted pots or any of that stuff. I'm just like, let me have 800 wires in here, and they all have to be perfect. You know, I don't know. It's my OCD, but I really enjoy like the gut shot aesthetics too.
Yeah. Well, it's got to look like a quality hand-wired, you know, piece of electrical art, right?
Yeah, and you can always have little cute like surprises in there too. So a lot of people don't open their pedals, I would say, but I think a lot of people do, because there are a lot of folks out there who are just admiring, like, wow, it's really like tidy and, you know, cool choice of parts or whatever.
Yeah. No, that's definitely a big part of it. What else for Low? Is there anything that we haven't covered? You know, anything that you particularly want to go over or make sure that people understand?
Just that it's a woman company, and I'm always open to, like, if there are females out there who want to learn how to do this, female identified folks, reach out to me on Instagram at LOE SOUNDS. I also put my email out there for folks that want to do that, and that's loesounds@gmail.com. Being that I come from DIY, I really want to like champion that, and I would love for there to be more women doing this. So yeah, I love to put myself out there and just say that, like, if you're out there watching and you want to learn, hit me up.
Yeah. What's the response then, you know, being a woman in a field that's predominantly male dominated?
Everyone's been super nice to me. I haven't had a lot of issues. The forums initially used to be kind of, you know, you see these comments that are like, whoa, not woman friendly, or like not gay friendly and things like that. But I have to say that it seems like there's been a lot of progression, and at least most of my friends who build, most of which, you know, basically all of which are male or male identified, they all want diversity of all kinds in this. Like, they don't want it to just be like a straight white dude thing.
Yeah.
And they want people of color and women, like they want it more broad too, because it's just more inspiration for everybody, right? So in my personal dealings, I've just like pretty much only had rad dudes reach out to me and become my friends and stuff. So that's really good and inspiring to me.
We're ready to go into the speed round. Big Muff or Fuzz Face?
I'm gonna have to say Fuzz Face.
All right. Fender combos, Deluxe Reverb or Tweed Deluxe?
Deluxe Reverb.
All right. Les Paul or Flying V?
Fender Strat. I'm not a Gibson fan.
I appreciate that. On the pedal side, Tube Screamer or Blues Breaker?
I'd say Tube Screamer.
All right. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Strat or Telly? I think I know this one.
That's tough. I'm gonna say Mustang. That's what I should have said in the first place.
AC30 or Twin Reverb?
Twin Reverb.
Would you prefer a humbucker or a P90 for a pickup?
Humbucker.
So single pickup guitars, Les Paul Jr. or Fender Esquire?
Fender Esquire.
Master volume on the amp, yes or no?
Yes.
And last but not least, guacamole on your burrito, yes or no?
That's tough. I kind of like go rogue on that one. But I'd say I like it. I'll say yes.
There you go.
It'd be speed roundy, that one.
Yeah, that was awesome. All right, so I mean that's pretty much what we got. That's all we got for you. Thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. That was fun. What I like to play, I don't know. I like a lot. I like all the Fenders. I don't know what it is. I play a lot of guitars. I'm a bass player mostly, and I play Fender basses too. All I need is a P and a J, and that's it. And that's what I've got. And I've had at one point, 10 different basses, and I said, I don't use these. They just look amazing.
Yeah.
But that's not fair to the bass. Someone who wants to play should play.